Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Truckers Podcast, FYI Conversations Without Barriers. I'm your host, Doug from Ontario, Canada. Yes, I have been away from the microphone. Yes, I've been on a hiatus, a break, personal reasons. And like many people out there, people, who even write books need to take a break. For family reasons or whatever the case may be. So I am back. Again, welcome to the Truckers Podcast, FYI, Conversations Without Barriers. I'm back, and I'm back with a purpose. Tonight, the policy collapse. Back to the decisions that dismantled Canada's housing safety net. Back to the years when government stopped building homes and started building a crisis. Because we want to understand why so many people are unhoused today. We need to understand how we got here. Let's start with what we had in the 1960s and 1970s. Canada had a strong federal commitment to social housing. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation backed large-scale construction of affordable units. Federal assistance supported up to 40% of housing starts, with a focus on low-income families. This was an era of co-ops, nonprofit housing, and rent geared to income models. Housing was seen as infrastructure, not just a commodity. The pullback begins in the 1980s, and in the 1980s, the federal government began to retreat. By 1986, federal support had dropped to just 14% of housing completions, and only 8% of that was directed towards low-income Canadians. A shift was ideological. Neoliberalism took hold, and housing was reframed as a market issue, not a public responsibility. Instead of building homes, government started subsidizing private developers. Instead of funding affordability, they funded speculation, and the cracks began to show. In the 1990s, they were described by housing experts as the dark years of the housing policy in Canada. In 1993, the federal government, then Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, cut all funding for new social housing responsibility. It was downloaded to provinces and municipalities. Without the budget to match, no new federal social housing programs were created for over a decade. This wasn't just a budget cut. It was a policy shift that redefined housing as a private matter, and it laid the foundation for the crisis we see today. The Harris cuts. Let's zoom in Ontario because the federal retreat wasn't the only blow. In 1995, newly elected Premier Mike Harris took office with a mandate to slash spending and shrink government. Within weeks, his government canceled 17,000 planned co-op and nonprofit housing units across the province. These weren't speculative ideas. They were shovel-ready, approved, and funded, targeted towards low and moderate income families. Gone. It was one of the largest mass cancellations of affordable housing in Canada's history. And it didn't stop there. All provincial funding for new social housing was halted. No new units were built during the Harris tenure. Municipalities were left scrambling with no budget, no mandate, and no support. This message was clear. Housing was no longer a provincial responsibility. By the 2000s, Ontario saw over 60,000 eviction applications, rent hikes that outpaced inflation, a surge in visible homelessness, not just in Toronto, but in London, Windsor, Sudbury, and beyond. This wasn't just a policy shift, it was a rupture, and it turned Ontario housing system into a patchwork of the crisis response between 2011 and 2016. Canada lost more than 300,000 units of private market affordable housing, while fewer than 20,000 subsidized units were created. That's a net loss of 280,000 homes that low-income Canadians could have lived in. And the result, mass homelessness. Something Canada hadn't seen before the 1980s. And by the early 2000s, cities like Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver saw homelessness skyrocket. Shelters overflowed, encampments spread, and the system scrambled to respond with no national strategy. Provinces developed fragmented systems. Some built transitional housing. Some funded emergency shelters. Some did nothing. Municipalities were left holding the bag, trying to fund service they were never meant to manage. And prevention, non-existent. Rent supplements, evictions, support use, housing pathways, all underfunded or ignored. We stopped building homes and we started building a crisis response. So let me tell you about someone like Raymond. He's 58. He's worked construction for 30 years. But after a back injury, he couldn't work. Ontario Disability Supplement Program pays him $1,308 a month. But rent for a one-bedroom in London is $1,730. He's applied for subsidized housing. He's on a wait list for 7 years. A wait list for 7 years for subsidized housing. So he sleeps in his truck. He showers at a shelter. He eats at a church drop-in. Raymond isn't failing. The system is failing Raymond. Today, Canada's housing system reflects those cuts. Federal investment in housing remains far below what's needed. The private market dominates and builds for profit, not affordability. Social housing stock is aging, it's underfunded and shrinking. And homelessness continues to rise. Over 235,000 Canadians experience homelessness annually. 35,000 are unhoused on any given night. Indigenous people make up 4.9% of the population, but over 30% of the homeless population. This isn't just a crisis, it's a legacy. So what do we do from the policy collapse? that housing is political. The cuts have consequences. And that when governments walk away, people fall through the cracks. We know what works. We've seen it in the housing first model. Housing first support of housing co-ops and indigenous-led models. The question now isn't how did we get here? It's how do we get out of it? So the stats are real. The consequences are real. When government stops funding housing. Now, going back to 1995, here in Ontario, the Premier, Mike Harris, he cancels 17,000 housing units that were already funded, shovels ready. Then it was needed. So today, low-income families can't find anywhere reasonable to rent. A one-bedroom average, just average, $1,730 a month. See, somebody making $70,000 a year, they can afford $1,750 a month for rent or a mortgage. It's 30% of his gross income. Someone making $35,000 a year, well, they can afford half of that. You're not going to get a mortgage for $1,750 a month. And you're certainly not going to find a place to rent under $1,700 a month. I checked listings in my local area, even the new builds downtown, starting at over $2,000 a month and upwards of near $3,000 a month. Here in London, they have their goal right now is to build 600 supportive housing units. And that's given people a place without any preconditions. We offer you the housing. We hope you accept it. And then we can start working on, say you have an addiction problem, mental health issues, post-traumatic stress disorder. Maybe come from an abusive relationship. You had to flee the home. These are all these problems they want to work with you. But only 600. We have 2,000 homeless people just in the city. And that's, you think, oh, 2,000. Well, when we look at Toronto, just the city of Toronto, not the greater Toronto area, just the city alone. Since 2022 to 2025, went from 10,000 to over 15,000 homeless. We have 2,000 homeless just here in the city. Population of the city of Toronto, approximately 2 million people. Here in the city of London, it's like 450,000. So they want to build 600 supportive housing units, and we have 2,000 homeless people. Over 3 years, City of Toronto wants to build 18 brand new homeless shelters. See, homeless shelters were, they're supposed to be temporary. You shouldn't be more than 24 hours in a shelter than you're moved into housing. But that's not the case. Maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that would be the case. I was reading an article the other day on the social housing here in the city, and more than half of them are in deplorable conditions. It's going to cost thousands of dollars to bring them up to standard. Thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands of dollars, because there's just so many that are just in deplorable conditions. Never, over the decades from the 60s to 70s, never really did the upkeep, never really did the maintenance that was required, or not enough. Now, who's on the hook for that? Taxpayers are on the hook for that. Some may have to be torn down and rebuilt. Move these tenants around the city to other places. Motels. When I look around my city, I drive around my city, I see these new builds. And I say to myself, affordable for who? Because when we say, we're going to build affordable housing, well, what's affordability? Your housing can't be more than 30% of your gross income. Are we building affordability for the wealthy because they can afford it? Building 600 supportive housing units, is a start. But we need more co-op housing that for low-income families, that they're not paying more than 30% of their gross income. And that they are not living paycheck to paycheck. And then they're not one paycheck away from being homeless. Could be a rental eviction. The landlord wants to move in a relative. Loss of job. A serious injury. Mental health decline. Low-income families are vulnerable. And we don't have the housing to meet that demand. Yes, government is putting programs together. Yes, governments are throwing money at it, but this money is for infrastructure. So it's for uh, new streets, um, sewer, hydro, and the money they're throwing at it is not even getting the shovels in the ground. Federal government is giving money to cities, but with strings attached. X amount of money has to go to X amount of things. And the government wants to see certain types of buildings, fourplexes. I mean, I drive around. I drive around my city and the old neighborhoods and stuff like that. They got the 3-story buildings. They got the 4-story buildings. You know, nice neighborhood, houses all around, and then you know we're telling the cities, well, you got to build more of these of these places, and it's amongst the communities and stuff like that. Then you got community pushbacks. They know you're not going to build it here, and so on. Or the city says, no, we're not going to build it here. And then the government pulls back on the strings. We're going to take away some of your funding. That's not helping. We're going to give you the money and we're going to take the money if you don't do what we say. See, the cities and municipalities, they know what they need and they know where we need to build them. So as we're getting this money for infrastructure and the planning, because this is what all this money is for, infrastructure and planning, and start building homes that reflect people's income. Because if we're just going to have big corporations come in and build affordable homes, not for the low income families, but for the wealthy, we think that the homeless crisis is bad now. And if we continue down that path, it's going to be far worse. And they're saying within the next decade, we could see here just in the province of Ontario, because the province of Ontario has the highest homeless population in the entire country. It's the largest province. That number sits at 80,000 homeless. And they're saying within a decade, it could rise to 300,000. So time is the most essence right now. From policy making, from the funds, to getting the shovels into the ground and start building. And yes, the city of Toronto is going to build 18 homeless shelters. 18. Man, it doesn't matter what city you go to, whether if you go to Vancouver, go to Montreal, you go to Toronto, anywhere across the country, homeless shelters are maxed out. You're lucky if you get a cot for the night. Now, when I say 80,000 just in the province, that's the point in time count. These are the people that they have counted that access the services that are available to them. This is how we know we have 2,000 people homeless here in the city, because these are the people who are counted that actually go and use the services that are available. But right across the country, we have hidden homeless. People who are surfing, staying with friends, relatives, sleeping in their cars. They're not accessing the services, so they can't be counted. We don't know how many hidden homeless there are, because we can't count them. And they're not coming forward. And they don't have to come forward. I mean, who's going to come forward anyways? And they're going to keep doing this until something comes up that they can afford. But nothing is coming up fast enough. And every time I drive around different neighborhoods and I see different builds going up, I know for a fact that they are not affordable for low-income families. These are condos, condo apartments, condo townhomes that are far out of reach for so many Canadians. And the mortgage is not going to be $1,700 a month if you make $70,000 a year. That mortgage is going to be nearing the $3,000 mark for a mortgage. Even older homes 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, those homes are on the market for $700,000. Probably anywhere between 650 to 700,000. And who's going to afford that? Not somebody making $70,000 a year. Just here in the city alone, just here in the city that I reside in London, you'd have to be making $150,000 a year. That's the reality. The advocacy groups, frontline workers, hospitals, police, all this costs money. People who have outgrown the foster care system are left with nowhere to go. People in and out of jail left with nowhere to go. Mental health services, lack thereof. Cost money. Police, ambulance, hospital. only to find them back out onto the street again. Cities across Canada, we're not making, you know, we're not really making any ground. We're really not. And, the Premier of Ontario wants to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years. Well, he's lagging behind. But again, what are those homes going to be? 1.5 million homes. What are they going to be? Is a quarter of them, half of them going to be directed to affordable housing for low-income families? The Premier has never said. He just said we're going to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years. Municipalities and cities want answers. People want answers. But when we start talking about where are we going to build these homes, where are we going to build these supportive housing? What parts of the city are we going to build them in? Who is going to push back? NIMBY, not in my backyard. And we hear it. We hear it in the town hall meetings, not in my backyard. The government here in Ontario, they're supposed to be helping people who have addictions. They closed all of the safe injection sites here in Ontario to build a hard hub of addiction treatment centers, and they put the cart before the horse. The treatment centers are slowly popping up here and there. Safe injection sites is a place that, prevents overdoses. Helps save lives. Yes, they ask them if they would like other services, addiction treatment. People don't have to accept it. But you can't close down something and not have a backup plan immediately starting afterwards. Like the Ontario government has done. Oh, but we're working on it, they say. Last year, or last winter, London didn't have a winter response program in place. To get people out of tent encampments and into shelters. Next weekend is the end of August. September begins. Cooling weather. Winter is not that far off. No wonder the city is going to have a winter response plan this year. And even on the coldest nights, and like Toronto, different from London when it comes to cold alerts. Toronto will respond at temperatures 5 below, 6 below, or 5 to 10 below. Before that alert is put in place here in London, the health unit will wait till it is extreme of 15 below. But yet we still had so many people in tent encampments in the winter. And it's like, oh, we're sorry. We're sorry we don't have a winter response plan. Sorry about that. We forgot we live in Canada. We forgot we have fucking snow and it gets fucking cold here. But we don't have a plan for you. And like many, we were appalled. Nobody, and I mean nobody, should be living out in the streets, sleeping in alleyways, sleeping in doorways, sleeping on park benches, sleeping in tent encampments. Should have a roof over their heads. We need to look at it as a human right for housing. We don't live outdoors. We live indoors. We have that security. We have that easy mindset. We have that safety. And every single Canadian and every single Indigenous people in this country deserve that. Now, I know I have been, and you know as well, and I thank you all who's come on here and joined me. You know, it's been a 3 months hiatus and, personal reasons why I stepped away from the microphone. And now, God, summer, it's just about over. I took 1 week's holiday. I started a new job in the same industry as a truck driver, but I worked nights, Monday through Friday night. But I took 1 week, first week of August, just to get away with family and friends, go to our favorite place. And while out fishing on the boat too, it gave me a chance to reflect. Think about, about what I want to do, with the podcast and how I want to move forward again with the podcast. So, it started back in 2019. This is 2025. Spent different amounts of money on equipment over the years. Did the upgrades because things cost money, You have to save for it in order to buy it. To make the podcast as easy and the best sound quality I can get that I can give you, for the money. But reflect on how I want to do this podcast, when I wanted to start it up. Contemplating, should I do it today? Should I do it tomorrow or whenever? And being that it's been since May. I mean, if you look back, if you Google search the Truckers Podcast FYI, you're going to see that the last episode was in May. A little over 3, maybe. 3 months. So the only way back into it is just jump back into it with both feet. That's the only way. So homelessness, this is segment 1 of 4. Segment 2, what actually works. Now, being that I work nights Monday through Friday, it would have to be an early afternoon show. And I know not everybody can get out here in the afternoons. I know that everybody can't get out in the evenings. I can't do it in the evenings. Anyways, except for on a Saturday and Sunday that I could do it in the evenings because I don't work Sunday night. I don't work weekends. So I'll need tomorrow to get up segment 2 for Tuesday. At 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you can join me, that's great. If you can't, I understand. But you'll be able to listen to the show anyways, right? Because it's, I'll get it up onto Podbean and all the other social platforms out there where you find your podcast, and you'll be able to listen to it. And as the week progresses, so Tuesday would be one show, so segment 2. Thursday would be segment 3. Saturday, and I can do that in the evening, will be segment 4. That's, thinking about how I can do this, working different shift, and that's how I can do it, right? Because I want to be out here. I really do. That 3 months, that 3 months break, personal reasons, to me was lengthy, right? And thank you. Fax Porcupine Podcast. Hey, and welcome back. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back. And I'm back. I really am. I'm back. Got my head on straight. Got my mind back on the track. So, yeah, and I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this, and I've talked about homelessness before. You know that I have. And so I figured, why not do a 4-part to it? I haven't done that. I usually talk about different things about homelessness and stuff like that, but this is going to be 4 parts. So Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. What actually works? So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out here. I was starting the show, and I'm thinking to myself, is someone going to come on and listen? Is the screen just going to be blank? You know, heart starts racing. And then I see an individual come up. And then a couple more people, and then you know everybody else has come on here, and I appreciate that. And I know you kept me as following me because you would get a notification, or you just happen to be on Podbean and you want to listen to live shows and say, "Hey, I want to check out the Truckers Podcast, FYI Conversation Without Barriers," and that's great. If you're new to listening to the show, fantastic, welcome. If you're listening to me the show before, welcome back. Let's keep this show going. We're going to keep the momentum going here. And that's what I want to do. Because every time I come up to my little room up here and I look at my equipment before leading up to this, my microphone, my teleprompter, my laptop, my interface, and it's not even being used. I moved, I'd be on the internet, on YouTube or something like that, and I gotta move the microphone, out of my face. And I'm thinking, well, it's there for a reason. It's there for a purpose. It's there for my voice. It's there for you to hear me. So here we are. Now, after this segment, like 4 segments, 2, I think I probably asked this a long time ago, is there anything that you'd want to talk about or you'd want me to talk about? I mean, news and politics is out there every single day. Canada knows what's going on in the United States. I mean, we're your next door neighbor. And here in Canada, the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. The tariff wars. The tariff agenda. I don't like talking wars because they're just flippin' depressing. But I can say this, the wars that are going on right now need to stop. Those are the things that matter too, believe me. But it's just so damn depressing. That's why when I talk, to talk about, social issues, what is affecting, what is affecting our home lives, what is affecting our families, jobs, inflation, housing. What's the Ontario government doing about it? We'll get to those. We'll get to those topics. Don't you worry. What's the federal government doing about it? We'll get to those topics. Right? And we'll get to the topics too about these tariffs as well, because economically, it's hurting everybody. Right? But we'll get to those topics because I'm back. This trucker is back. But let's get through these four segments through this week. So tonight, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. We'll finish these segments first because obviously there's lots more to talk about. But thank you for joining me this evening. I'm relieved in a way. I'm relieved that I actually, did this podcast, and I'm relieved that you joined me. And I appreciate it because I've said this before, and I've said this from time and time again. You, the listeners, are the podcast. Because without you, there wouldn't be a podcast. You make the show. You really do. You're the most important piece of the podcast. I'm just the voice behind the microphone. But you are the most important piece of the podcast. So thank you for joining me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. I know it's getting a little bit later right now. It is 9:53 p.m. here in Southern Ontario. You have a work week coming up. I have a busy week coming up, but I'm going to, like I say, I work night starting Monday night, but I do have other important things I have to do tomorrow. So that's why I'm going to push the show off till Tuesday, and it gives me that opportunity to get up segment 2 as well. So if you, like I said earlier, if you can join me at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, fantastic. If you can't, I understand. So have a good night. Take care. And thank you for joining me. This is the Truckers Podcast, FYI Conversations Without Barriers. I'm your host, Doug. Thank you.